And so we are, see, I will just call on people so we don't have to wonder who's going to go next. I'll start. I'll say who I am and maybe just something that's, if you could, something that's happening on immigration issues where you live, which is how we have started nearly every meeting. It seems like it's a good way to get us focused on things that are happening. My name is Tina Shelton. I live in the greater Philadelphia area. I've been here for about 21 years. I've also lived in Oregon and in the South, in Louisiana. Actually, I flew through Houston not too long ago, Melissa, for a family visit. What's happening here? I had the immense privilege of watching someone present on the topic of medical deportations yesterday. Something that almost no one knows is happening. There's this huge, horrible, horrendous side business where hospitals get rid of their patients that can't pay by paying something like $50,000 to medical ambulance, including, you know, either planes that will take someone back to their home country when they can't afford to pay. And if they don't have advocates to help them, you know, this can happen. And of course, $50,000 is cheaper than what a person's, you know, some of these with people with severe medical problems, that's just a drop in the bucket. So that's, you know, an advantage thing. Anyway, it's horrible. There's this local group called a Pennsylvania group, the Pennsylvania Immigrant Rights Coalition has a subgroup that is just putting this together after they advocated for somebody and got the hospital to change their tactics. And so it's wonderful. So they're going to create this resource that can be spread out. So that's what's something that's happening locally, and I will stop and I will call on Margot.
Thank you. I'm from Nisenan Territory in Alta, California, and that is in Sacramento. And I'm just reflecting on how I should be called undocumentada. I've lesser legitimacy to be on this line than many people who are being deported, and that's humbling to reflect upon. And I guess that's why I'm here. Thank you very much.
All right, George, take a break from thinking about Tar Heels.
I should be so lucky. Okay. I'm George Friday. I'm from the Southern Piedmont Branch. I'm in Gastonia, North Carolina. And something that we're working on here, connected to the Poor People's Campaign, is the Monday, the 28th, there'll be a big event in Raleigh that Samantha and I will be getting on a bus to go to. And I was tasked with being one of the people preparing the testifiers. And of the testifiers, there are two people that are connected to an organization in Durham called Il Centro Hispano that I've been in touch with the last few days, helping them prep to speak. So that has been different for me in some ways. It's basically hearing their story and helping them practice how to get their story to 3 minutes, which is fascinating for folks struggling with immigrant rights issues and trying to get a sense of safety during these times when they feel threatened in lots of ways. I will pass it on to Melissa.
Thank you, Ms. George. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Torres. I am part-time between Houston, Texas, and the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, which is right on the border with Tamaulipas, Mexico. That's where I'm originally from, the border, and my family's originally from Tamaulipas. So I still live and work between Houston and the Valley. I have been a member of WOLF since 2011. Currently serve as vice president for the international board. And I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to say, but thanks for having me.
Diane, can you go next?
Who was that? Who did you ask?
Diane, I asked
Oh,
you, Diane.
Okay,
Sorry.
I wasn't sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Diane Blake from Fairfax, Virginia. And yeah, it's nice to see Silfred on here again. Thank you for coming. And actually, an interesting situation just arose. I was asked to get a friend an H-2B visa. She lives in Nicaragua. And it seems complicated. If anyone has any experience with that, it would be great. So anyway.
Okay, Solfrid, you're next. You can unmute. Solfrid, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a Norwegian woman and I'm a psychologist. My PhD is in preventing mental health disorders through services to adolescents, CBT services, and digitalization of services. The last 4 years, I've been living in Lebanon and going back and forth between Lebanon and Syria and Norway, working on digitalization of mental health help for adolescents. And now I'm here doing partly the same, very much going in between countries, talking to adolescents, with adolescents, making bridges between adolescents, which I find deeply both amusing but very important. And peace building is, I deeply believe that comes from inside, and that we should use schools and invest in young people's life to work on their problem solving strategies and how they deal with the emotional challenging situations. So like both because of course that's good for them there and like here and now in a child's and adolescent life, but also because it's like on the longer term is peace building.
Wonderful, thank you. Joan, you're next. Your name and anything happening locally.
Hi, yeah, Joan Goddard, and I'm in the San Jose, California area, southern end of the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm going to be asking our folks who, there are several groups here who work on immigrant issues and with immigrants. And so I'm going to be asking them about this medical situation, funding and so on that Tina mentioned, and see what they're doing about that. Thank you.
Samantha, I know you're driving. If you can unmute and say hello, do. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Hello, everybody. I just picked up 250 t-shirts for the rally, so I'm excited about that. We're working hard here. As far as immigration issues, I haven't had time to speak with anybody about it, but friends that I've been talking with recently have expressed some more frustration again over the situation with the Haitian immigrants. So I'm sure that's where we'll be directing some of our energy.
Thank you. And Teresa.
Thank you, Tina. Teresa Alameen. I'm in the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia, the home of Fort Benning on Muskogee stolen land. And Columbus is a very immigrant-friendly community, having received many refugees through the Vietnam era. And so it's a large Vietnamese community here, quite a large Puerto Rican community here. one of our city council members is Puerto Rican. And I think that has a lot to do with people feeling very comfortable here in the Latinx community. And there's a huge festival every year, which everybody participates. But I think the military community here being so huge makes immigration an issue that's not hard to address when it comes to any forms of discrimination that come up. But what we're dealing with is the fact that it's a majority people of color community that is very pro-business. And so there's a lot of poverty among the people of color communities. And I think poverty among the immigrant population, as well as the Black population is kind of the central issue to be addressed here since this city was founded in 1828, and the legacy of slavery lives on big time.
Thank you. All right, do we have a volunteer for either note-taking or timekeeping? And we have abbreviated the note-taking to action items in the past, so it doesn't have to be complicated. Anyone willing to take notes or timekeep?
I can do either.
Okay, well, I'll let you take notes and I'll timekeep
Okay.
because hopefully I'll remember to start my little timer. Okay, I've got the agenda review. There's a suggestion to move the discussion about the organizational elements of this small subcommittee to naming ourselves, since they're related. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Tina, is it possible for you to screen share the agenda
Okay. Sure.
just to remind us what's on it?
Did I? Oop. Share screen. There we go. Make it big. Okay, so yep. So I have the three main items on our agenda today would be our coming up with a name, which we've discussed in the past and without a resolution. So I'm putting it back on the agenda. We have a proposal for a bilingual brochure and kind of how we might function as a subcommittee, including being able to culturally center those who are most affected by immigration policies. And also we have spent, by decision, we spent most of our organizing months on process, and some of us are wondering if we are ready to make some decisions and take actions as a committee and become a little bit more action oriented. So those are our three main portions, and one of them, this part of here, intention, center those who are culturally and historically affected by immigration policies as much as possible in leadership roles, could go up here under naming ourselves. And that's a thought.
Well, Tina, one of the reasons I asked Melissa to come, because some years ago, there was a huge body of work around immigration justice, and Melissa led that work. So I think it would probably be good on the naming ourselves if Melissa can describe a bit historically what has been done in Will around the issue of immigration. I think that would be helpful if
That
she
sounds
doesn't-
good. Okay.
If she doesn't mind.
Any other additions to the review, to the agenda? I think Melissa from her email said she'd be willing to do that. So Melissa, I'm gonna take that as a yes without even asking you, because you indicated in your email that you could do that. Any other things? There'll be time for announcements at the end. Yes, Sofrid?
So if I remember, or if I didn't misunderstand Diane last time, she asked me to tell a little bit of the work we are doing in our peace group in Bergen, and I'm prepared
Yes.
for that.
Yes,
Mm.
you were right.
Would love to
it-
do that if there is room for it, but of course,
Yes.
if you don't have room for it, I
Thank you. I didn't keep track of the action items last time, and so that's why it's not on here. I will, yes, I'm gonna save, what, 7 minutes for that at the end? Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Alfred. All right, so let's move on. And I am allowing 15 minutes for naming ourselves, starting with a historical perspective. And feel free to put your Zoom on speaker whenever you like. And Melissa, would you like to start us off and give us where we're coming from?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, however this subcommittee goes, whatever the iteration is, I'd like to support it. Just giving the background, if it's helpful, as it forms and as you move forward. I noticed a lot of things on the agenda were things that were in our initial proposal. So in case it's helpful, you can, move forward with that. I believe it was the 2016 Congress that this was proposed. It was in Detroit, so I could be wrong. I could be confusing it with Chicago, but the Triennial Congress for the National Section. So we had proposed a border and immigration committee, not a subcommittee. I know a lot of things have come under, I believe, AHR, if I'm not mistaken. This was a separate committee that was proposed on its own, and we had, if I believe, I'm remembering correctly, it was a borders and immigration, or committee on borders and immigration. One of the main reasons that I had pushed at the time for borders to be included, when I started in WILF in 2011, I heard a lot of talk about war and weapons and armament, and I really heard the language like elsewhere. And being from the border, not realizing, I was on a call about drones once, and I talked about, the drones that we saw every day, and people had no idea what I was talking about. And there are drones and now more people know that there were drones all along the border. So I wanted to bring that focus back to our own border. I don't think it's right to talk about justice and peace and disarmament as though it's a foreign thing when the US is imposing so much of it here in our own communities and along our own borders. So it was a committee on borders and immigration. We had proposed that it be led by the then Houston branch that had formed. And the reason for that is that we also wanted it to be led by immigrants or children of immigrants. And most of us in that branch identify as those. On top of the fact that, I don't know if everyone knows, Houston is the city that accepts more refugees than any other city in the US. It's also the most international city, yes, more than LA and New York. The most international city by population in the US. So we had thought it would be a good leadership opportunity for the young leaders in the Houston branch to take forward and do their work. Plus a lot of them, our local organizers working with local immigration issues and populations. So that's how it was proposed originally. So this would be kind of like the like headquarters of the immigration committee. We wanted to, it was also proposed to have partnerships with the Mexican branch at that time that was also taking a shift in leadership to focus on issues of migration on both sides, push-pull factors, which a lot of us work on here. I've actually continued to make suggestions on how that work could continue with that branch, and I'll get back to it in a bit. I think the first major thing we had done in the first year, because it really took about a year of its existence before it kind of dissipated, was, at the time, I really can't remember what it was, but there was some injustice going on, as always, on the border. And so we had created a toolkit for letter writing campaigns, local organizing, and things to say to media, or checks, what we called like call outs for media, calling your local news sources, letting them know like what language they should be using, who they should be speaking to about the issues, and what other sides they should be listening to. So that's really how it happened, how we had started. We didn't continue with that work. A lot of the leadership eventually left, and the Houston branch then dissipated. Something that I had recently talked to with some of the members of the US board and the Mexican section, which I, by the way, still continue to work really closely with the Mexican section, at least before COVID. I haven't been able to go back to Mexico since COVID, but hopefully will be this year, is in the spirit that, like Teresa and the Black Liberation Caucus had talked about with reparations. That was always something that was really big to me about with immigrants in Mexico. I'm from Mexico. So the largest immigrant population in the US is Mexican. Almost half of US land was stolen from Mexico. One of the issues that's been happening recently, since about 2014, 2015, in the Mexican section, and not, to be honest, this isn't just the Mexican section. A lot of our sisters in Latin American communities have trouble paying their membership dues, because it's really not a Latino cultural thing to pay membership to an organization where you're basically volunteering. At least in Mexico, I know no other feminist organization that asks you for membership dues to be a part of it, unless you're like going to a conference or something. So consistently, there's been an issue in getting anyone to keep that membership because of the dues. And on top of that, we have been working a lot with Indigenous communities in bringing the issue of like climate change to focus in Mexico. And obviously those communities, even less, were unable to pay the dues. Something I had proposed to the US section, which maybe this committee would like to discuss and take it, I'm just suggesting it again, was I had proposed that the US section could start a fund, like a reparations fund, to help the Mexican branch keep their membership up to date for at least the next two Congresses and helping them rebuild, and investing in their leadership and growth there. I would love it to be forever. But my proposal for now is at least for the next two Congresses, which should be about a 6-year period. So yeah, I think that's about all the information I have on how this started and things that I had been working on based on this issue. And just to give a little bit of background, again, I'm from the border. I was raised in both countries. I'm currently working at an academic medical institution, and I lead the human trafficking program. So a lot of my work is on the border, doing assessments and research on exploitation and migration, mostly in both sides of the border, southern and northern Mexican border.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for your work, trafficking and etc. And for this update. A lot more than I knew about, even though I was a member during that time. So thank you.
Can I respond to Teresa's comment in the chat?
Yes.
So Teresa said that Black Liberation Caucus should take up the issue of dues payments. I would love that support. I do want to stress that I presented this to the board because I don't think Black leadership should take on the onus of paying reparations to another oppressed population. And so just to stress that in anti-racism work and reparations, I think it's something that Wolf US currently, as the board is, could take on. But I do appreciate if Black Liberation Caucus could support that.
I love this idea. I've been talking a lot, so raise your hand or let me tell me to hush, but I will just say that I love it. And I've always loved fair trade, and we could partner with a group like Equal Exchange and say, host a lot of like products that they already do and create some kind of online sale that could be going on all year, and all the proceeds, you know, and if we tell people about it. Okay, that's just one silly idea, but I love it. I love the idea of us supporting Mexican and Latin America sections. Okay, somebody else.
Teresa has her hand up.
Sorry, Teresa. Go ahead. Unmute.
Well, I'm just trying to see where we are on this point on the agenda, and I didn't understand what Sophie needed to present. So is this the point where Sophie is presenting something?
No, she's going to present at the end, and I'm going to keep us on time to do that. So this is where we are on the agenda, is under naming, and we have about 5 minutes left of that. So we may or may not get to discussing our name. I think this was very helpful to hear where the original name came from, border and militarization, border and immigration, I mean, which took us to where AHR in this new iteration, we had the idea of border and militarization, whether or not we want to keep that immigration and border issues element, the word militarization or whatever. I mean, some of my friends would love to keep that element because of the how we've created this by mixing up war military products, weapons and all those things, and militarized our border, how unhealthy that is. But I'm not sure if we need that in our name. So yeah, we're kind of having a general discussion about our name, starting with our history of where we come from. And I would also say at the bottom of the agenda, I included, I think in here, just an idea of, oh no, that was in another section, so I'll skip it. So
Tina,
again,
excuse me.
Yes, Teresa.
You're rambling, Tina. What I was going to say is that immigration justice was the name I think that we've been embracing over nearly a year. And I noticed you said something about the word justice. The word justice is a very clear word. And what's happening now is not only inhumane, but it is unjust. And I think immigration justice is a good, simple name that we can embrace without the confusion of changing the name. At this point, there are 5 subcommittees, and all of us have settled on our names. And immigration justice is how this subcommittee has been referred to. And I'd just like to place a vote for keeping that name, and all of the details like the horses and the men on horseback doing what they were doing to immigrants at the border. That is the militarization of the border. There's no question that that exists as an issue. And there are a number of other issues that are unjust around what's happening at the border and around immigration in general, in terms of who gets in and who doesn't. If you're from the global South, the likelihood that you're gonna run into a lot of problems as opposed to being from Europe or Canada. So we have to talk about racism in immigration as well. But I think it all is put together under the word we want: justice in immigration policy. Over.
Thanks, Teresa. I will throw out briefly that the last time we talked about it in November, some people thought that justice might be overused. I think some of us came around to saying, well, maybe, maybe not. Does anybody else want to talk about it? Are we ready for a second on that, on on whether we should vote. Let's see. I'm opening the floor for any other thoughts about our name right now. Thoughts or comments? There's a move to take a vote on immigration justice. And I'm not going to open up a,
Second that.
yes, Samantha, go ahead.
Sure, I'll second that. Let's vote.
Okay, so for those of you who are not on camera, tell me how you want to vote. Those of you who are, you can either put your little hand up like that. Teresa, if you could take your hand down and or put your hand up like that, either
Well,
way. And Samantha,
Tina,
yes.
I would prefer that we could use a consensus method and
Okay.
find out if there are any objections or any unreadiness to settling on the name. I expressed my opinion about it, but I would appreciate, and I appreciate the support from Samantha, but I'd like to be clear that we're reaching a consensus on this, if possible. If there's any unreadiness, we can move it to the next month.
Yes.
It's not urgent. But
It is not urgent. I
really
agree.
have a problem with the voting thing because consensus is what my preference is. So if there's anyone here who is unready to accept keeping the name as immigration justice, I would like to respect that. Thank you.
Diane,
Yeah, I was just wondering, what are the other choices that were mentioned? Could you
Teresa,
say
is it
them?
okay if I reply? So the other thing that, although Teresa has been using immigration justice, the other name that had this we have been using, so it's probably been both of those, is border and militarization. Now we could also have a third or fourth option. Melissa told us that before it was called border and immigration, which is another iteration. So does anyone have hesitancy about moving forward? About would anyone not feel coalescing around immigration justice or want more discussion? We can have more discussion.
Margot put her hand up.
Oh, Margot,
Yes.
sorry. Thank you,
I
Margot.
just have a quick proposal, just so that we consider everything before we have a vote. I would propose maybe something like immigration equity and regional solidarity. And we can put in maybe something about La Frontera, I guess, militarizada, the militarized frontier maybe should also be in there. But the idea of the regional solidarity is the message I got from Melissa's speech.
Can you repeat it? I didn't hear it all.
Okay, that would be maybe immigration equity and regional solidarity.
Equity and regional solidarity. Thank you. Which could be a subtitle, since it's kind of long.
Yes.
Someone else's hand was up. Sofred, was that you? Nope. One more hand. Joan, you got something to say?
Melissa.
Melissa, and I saw a hand.
Just to iterate, the reason that we had pushed for borders and immigration so it doesn't just become just immigration issue, that we look at the US role in it. So I don't think, I understand the regional solidarity, but that should really be implied in including borders or militarization into it as well. Again, the reason that we use borders and immigration was so it wasn't we were looking at immigration as something that was foreign. And bringing it back to our own border, specifically the US-Mexico border and the militarization that's happening there. So just again, to stress why that's what we had decided before.
Okay.
I mean, I like immigration justice. I just wanted more attention the focus isn't just on immigration, it's also on the cause, which is borders.
Mhm. Which we
Makes
talked
sense.
about in here before about the whole, yeah.
Right. And part of decolonizing is acknowledging that they're man-made.
So it seems to me that there might be a little bit more discussion. Am I reading the room right? Yes, okay. So what I'm gonna suggest, oh, Samantha, you're up.
No, was Melissa suggesting border and immigration justice?
No, but that is a great suggestion.
That sounds like, that would sound great, I think.
So we either coalesce on one of these, border and immigration justice, or immigration and justice, or immigration and border justice, or we take more time. And my suggestion would be that we have an email discussion. We put it out there, make a proposal, send it through email so that even if you can't be at the meeting, your point gets out. So we do need to move on. So tell me what you all want to do. You want to?
Well, Tina,
Yes.
my hand is raised.
Got it.
But I like immigration and decolonization. That word is important. And Melissa pointing out the fact that borders are man-made due to imperialism and the move across what is now the United States that stole land, not only from the indigenous natives, but also from Mexico itself. And so I think we should table this until the next meeting, because part of the discussion is educational. And I think it's useful, not just a name, but exactly what we're going to be doing. And I think the next discussion may kind of impact or inform the name after this committee kind of decides what some of the work will be. So I'm for tabling until the next meeting.
Everyone in agreement. Melissa, your name is still up and so is, I mean, your hand is still up and so is mine. Let me put my hand down. Anybody?
Sorry.
That's okay. Anybody want to second the idea to table it? Are we okay with tabling? Show me. Okay, I see some tablings. All righty, moving on. Our next topic is a proposal that comes from Teresa on a bilingual brochure. Teresa, I was thinking that we could cover this in 10 minutes. Does that sound about right?
Yes, I'll try to keep my proposal to 3 minutes.
And then we can, okay, great.
At a previous meeting, I proposed in our outreach to develop more consciousness around diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we do bring in working class women who are immigrants. And what I've noticed is I travel around in the hotels, many of the women are immigrants who speak little English. And one asked me about my Wolf button one day, seeing the dove. And so I thought that it would be a good thing for us to be able to do, to have a bilingual brochure that would be along the lines of the Join Wolf Today, but with a particular focus on our immigration justice subcommittee, to make sure there was at least a panel in the brochure that said that, but the contacts would need to be to bilingual people. And one of the reasons I wanted Melissa to come, because to see if she would be willing to be listed as a contact on the brochure. Adrian Bernal, who is an amazing a person. I watched him do the simultaneous translation. So he has already agreed to work on the brochure. And so he's very active in the Atlanta area, in the Metro Atlanta branch around immigration justice. So we have, through the Southern Anti-Racism Network, a commitment to produce a draft of the brochure to present to the subcommittee in the near future. So it's an idea with a draft that can be produced based on what Adrian thinks should go in it, based on his understanding of my outreach to working class women whose language, first language, is not English, but is Spanish. That's it.
Opening it up to discussion now. I have a question, but I'm letting someone else go first. Yes, Joan.
Yeah, Teresa, I was focusing on your emphasis on working class women. It seems like that's great, but is the idea that it would be in some way focused or limited? I guess is the way I'm thinking focused means. So, or would it be a brochure in Spanish for everyone who speaks Spanish primarily, or is happy with Spanish?
Well, it's a bilingual brochure.
Good.
It's Spanish and English. So one side would be English and the other side would be Spanish. And it would be on the order of the Join Wilf Today brochure that some people may be familiar with, because the kind of history of the organization having been founded in 1915, that very nice timeline that's there, but less wordiness around some of the other stuff, but more focused on immigration justice and our clarity about people aren't crossing the border crossed them a long time ago. And so it's something that Adrian would be good at working as a politically conscious person around the issues that Melissa talked about, the colonization of the region in particular. And so it's a way to do some outreach to people who are not people of European descent, and people who have come here looking for jobs and other things. So it is a way to deal with the perceptions of classism and racism that have somehow found its way in the description of what WILF is currently. So it's kind of addressing the social composition of WILF in a way that is deliberate. So
Can I call on Melissa now?
Yeah, thanks, Joan. That was a great question. So thank you, Teresa. I want to, well, first of all, I want to say I wouldn't mind being a contact on the brochure, but I don't know if it's the best streamlining. We might want to give them the same membership contact since I don't represent the US section. And so we don't want to get any kind of like, what's he say, any kind of cross communication. I'm happy to help with it. I just don't know if it would be best for streamlining, but that could be discussed if there's a way to figure that out. And I want to second everything Teresa said. I want to share something kind of personal, and it's something I've said publicly before, but the way WILF globally, not just in the US, but I will say especially in the US, the way WILF is promoted is very Eurocentric. It's very historically white feminist. And it's focused on that legacy. I appreciate it. I appreciate that work. But what I've consistently said during my years in WILF is that legacy is not my legacy. It's not my history. I don't identify much with it. And I think having something more focused on where WILF is going and what the goals are is a more inclusive approach that would get more people involved. It is, sorry, my puppy is trying to jump into the screen. It is something, the leadership that we had in the immigration committee in the Houston branch before, that was a big struggle for them. It was a lot of mostly Latina. We had a few Middle Eastern immigrant women or daughters of immigrants who struggled with that idea of what WILF was, you know, and these are people who have other organizations and are organizing in the community and then giving away banners or, you know, pictures and t-shirts that are like all white women from the 1900s. Sorry. As a social worker, Jane Addams did great things for immigration or with immigrants. It's still not the same history. So I do second that a lot, that the messaging, especially in a bilingual brochure, should reflect that. I should say this reminded me that another thing in our toolkit, I don't know if I have a copy because it was so long ago, but one thing we did was and we had requested a banner, I remember at one of our events. WILF in Spanish is LIMPAL, Liga Internacional de Mujeres para Paz y Libertad. And so because so much of our immigration work was again focused on our border, which is a lot of Latin American immigration, and then the majority of the especially undocumented immigrants are Mexican. We had WILF LIMPAL on the logo for the committee. So that's something that might also be considered. I want to stress that because this is a US committee, that's why we strived for the majority focus to be on the US-Mexico border, because that's where so much of the racism comes from. I don't see a lot of demilitarization happening at the Canadian border in comparison. And we didn't want to dismiss other immigrant groups. Again, Houston is the most international. We also work with other immigrant organizers in our Vietnamese community, in our Indian community. We had a large South African community, Sudanese. But again, the majority of that population, and then the majority being attacked in the media, are Latinos. So that's why it was a focus, but not the only primary group.
Thank you.
So we did think of everything in English, Spanish. Of course, we would have included Arabic, Vietnamese, whatever we could have.
Calling Samantha now. While she's unmuting, we're getting close to time. So go ahead, Samantha.
I just wanted to comment real quickly that I really am so surprised that everything doesn't go out in Spanish also. Every other organization I've worked with puts all their announcements in Spanish too. In our little organization here in the Southern Piedmont Circle of the Poor People's Campaign, I make sure any flyers we make get done in Spanish, and I'll do them and then send them to a friend to check over. I'll make sure they're done as best I can. I am not a Spanish speaker, but I do my best, and then I send it to be checked before one goes out. But they have to be available too. I can't believe that it hasn't been available. That doesn't make any sense. And I just want to add something personal. I was carrying some voting materials the other day, and I registered with my little Spanish and a Spanish card. I got to register a voter yesterday. So it's really important to engage people.
thank you. I want to give us a time check. We should be wrapping up right now so that we can give Sophia the time that we told her. And so I think if we stick to about an hour like we wanted to do, we'll like for it to be okay if we save the goals and intentions of the subcommittee for our next meeting. Or,
Well, Tina,
yes.
On this issue of the brochure, this is something that the Southern Anti-Racism Network and the Fannie Lou Hamer branch have kind of agreed to fund.
I'm not leaving it. I'm just saying, is it okay with everyone if we push the other one later? Is that okay? And then
not really.
Okay.
Because it's only 7. What time is it? 7.
It's 7:25.
Oh, so you had planned the meeting for an hour?
Yes, that's what we've been doing.
Well,
Sorry, we made that decision a while back just to keep them short and sweet and cover other things later, but.
Well, I would like to see if people are willing to stay a few minutes longer, and so we can cover at least the other items on the agenda, including Sophie speaking, etc.
Okay.
I think the way the time was managed, it ran out before I realized it, because I think the issue of the brochure is something that SARN and the Fannie Lou Hamer branch and the Black Liberation Caucus can kind of proceed, and we can show the draft to the Immigration Justice Committee and see if people want to sign on at a future meeting.
Okay,
So
well, I was going to leave a couple minutes to say, did we
stop this discussion now about the brochure, since we're running out of time on an agenda that was planned as an hour. But I think the other items on the agenda, I would like to hear from Sophie and hear what she has to say. And I wouldn't like to just hard stop the agenda based on some rigid 1 hour thing, since we're almost at an hour now over.
So my question was going to be, what else do we need to discuss about the brochure? I have another question, but I'd like to take it off and just email you about it, since it sounds like you're saying that we've got you've got a method for making it happen. I am okay with saying over, and I would like to check in with the rest of us. I don't think that we could cover the other part. I think we'd need at least another 10 minutes. So are we okay staying for another 15 minutes? Does that sound about right? Some head nodding. Okay. All righty. Thank you. So Sophie, I'd like for you to go ahead and go next, Wilfred, and then we'll end up with the more loosey-goosey
thank you for that. Could I share screen with you? I
yes,
prepared
let me
some
make you a
pictures and
co-host so
things.
you can share the
Yeah?
screen.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3. There we go. Co-host. There you go. Should be in there now.
Yes. Good. So, as you've been talking, please stop me and feel free to stop me if this is like far on the side, but maybe it can be interesting anyhow, like to hear about how we are working in Bergen in our peace group. Me, myself, psychologist, and working with the wealth from Bergen as a base first, and then from Lebanon. And in Lebanon, what I've basically been doing a lot of is talking with kids. And before I say anything else about what we are doing in our peace group, I would love to I promised some of the children who are living in these tents on the border to Syria to, when I talk to people outside who haven't been in this camp, to tell urgent messages from the kids who normally cannot like be in forums like this because mainly they don't have electricity nor Wi-Fi more than very shortly time, and it's not only for the Mexican people that language is an issue. Typically, it's that for Arabic children in the Middle East also, and especially these growing up in poverty. So I've talked with, in this period, I talked with 300 of them while they also were making drawings, and they have 5 messages. The first message from them is to stop the war. And I think this is important both when it comes to the Syrian war that is at the end now, hopefully, but also with the Ukrainian war. Like, I think it's a universal message from the children that this is the most important thing for children. Stop the warplanes, stop killing. Next message from the children is about education. Give us education, because as we know it now from Lebanon, but also from most of the other refugees in the world, but there is this big portion who are not, they don't have the right to normal school. And that's super important to them. The third one, they typically say, is about poverty again. It's about giving us food, medicine, clothes. They're crying for their mothers, for their grandmothers, for their brothers, and sometimes for themselves. The next message, that's typically about their brothers or fathers or other men who are imprisoned, or very often in Lebanon, what they tell the children is that they got lost. And typically what happens is that they are taken by the police somewhere, either in Syria or in Lebanon, and there is no justice at all. They just disappear. Like many people, they disappear like for 3 years, for 5 years, and then all of a sudden they are back, or they are never back. Last message is make it safe enough so we can go home. The reason why I've spent so much time there is to learn more, and we are working on this mental health help and to make more mental health that is evidence-based accessible for adolescents across digital divides and across economic divides, so that we have made this game that is downloadable for free in Lebanon, and in Norway it's like bought by the health directorate so that everybody can use it for free. And it's like a game where you can download it to your phone if you have one, or to your parents' phone, or what we do like when we have these big implementation projects in Lebanon now is to download it to the NGO's computer or tablets or things, and use this is in the blended learning groups for adolescents, typically 10 adolescents in the group, where we are training their social and emotional skills, and it works. And typically, like what my peace group back home in Bergen is doing is like to encourage this work, and partly to finance it, the implementation of it. What we also have been working a lot on is how to create work for women, because parts of the problems for all these mothers and women is about poverty, it's about earning enough money to put food on the table. And the Syrian women, many of them, they are so good to crochet, and they can crochet like these teddy bears or the Bernie Sanders or whatever you give them. And all the time, and I've been going back to Norway, I have like suitcases of these crochet things, and we use them in campaigns back home, in the peace campaigns. For example, now, like when we had this go with Ukraine, we have this all the arms you need time to transarm from weapons to climate security, which is the main goal of our peace group at the moment. And what I love with what we are doing is to give our big ears to the adolescents who have these experiences, because they are the generation who actually suffered the most from the militarization, which is big also on the US side, and which is super scary right now in the world situation when it comes to sending all this money to all these neighbor countries of Ukraine, which is super scary. Yeah, I am sorry if I've used more time than I should, but thank you for your attention.
You've used exactly 6.5 minutes, and I'm floored, and I want to talk to you more about it off work. I work in mental health field in a residential rehab. Samantha's got a heart up, and somebody's got a hand. Let's see whose hand is up. George is clapping. Okay.
Yes, that's applause.
Yes, applause. Yes. Oh, thank you for sharing this. And I would like to find ways to share your work more off, not in this meeting, but Diane's nodding too. Okay. Oh, so important.
It's lovely if we can find ways to share and collaborate. But no, you have my email.
Yes, now I have your email. So yes, I will be in touch.
Perfect.
People, we need to decide if we want to try to tackle the last subject, which for me seems too long. It's talking about where we want to go as a committee. I think we had a lot of great discussions, and I don't think I need to tackle this tonight, but does somebody have something that they really want to say after hearing this wonderful? Teresa, you've got the floor.
Well, I did put in the chat that I thought this would be something good to share with the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee as well, since it's a committee that appears to be floundering at this point. But this seems very appropriate to talk about in that committee, because this really is a presentation where it sounds like there's material support that's being requested, because looking at the little crochet items, I think there are probably folks I know who would be interested in purchasing some of them. I certainly would. So I think there's more to be said in terms of how we can show solidarity with the work that's being done with children, because children is my thing, and I work with children living in poverty with their parents between the ages of 7 and 12 primarily. And for you to be able to share what's going on with the children in another world that are the same age, I see a way to do that. So I'm not very good at saving the chat, Sophie, but George will help me. So if you could put your contact information in the chat, I'd like to get with you about possibly doing a Zoom with some parent leaders I work with who have children in the age group that you work with.
I will also send it to you in an email, Teresa. So, but I will save the chat and anybody can have it. Joan has asked if she'll be doing the same kind of work in Tanzania, and Sophie said yes. So we're glad to hear that too. So are you open to doing with a little bit more than 7 minutes?
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just found part of our mission, I think, for a subcommittee. Okay. I think we need to decide when our next meeting is. Thank you all for being here. It was lovely to spend part of my Friday with you. If we stick to the 4th Friday, that will put us, or there are 5 Fridays in April, so it would put us on the 22nd of April. It seems,
That's Earth Day.
that is Earth Day. A lot of things, my son has a prom that night. But then the following weekend, I'm gonna be traveling. So not that I have to be there, but I can, so someone else can do the Zoom, I'm sure.
How about May
Wait,
6th?
Tina, is there any reason it has to be Friday evening?
Nope,
One of the reasons we changed Friday evening for the UN Decade Committee is because there was at least one Jewish member of the subcommittee, and he pointed out that, often, since the Jewish Sabbath starts at
Sure.
sundown on Friday, so that's why we moved from Friday. Fridays is kind of a rough time for an evening meeting.
So do we have another proposal, or shall I put together a poll? Because I don't know, we've struggled with finding another night, another day or time. I think, I can't even remember what night we were meeting before, Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, a month from now, the 26th and the 27th, Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm totally open those days. So I'd like to meet within a month. And if we could do it in that last week and avoiding the 29th.
Avoid the Friday. How's everybody for Tuesday? I can do better than a Wednesday. How's Tuesday? And this time frame in your time zone? I see a thumb. Margot, how about you?
I abstain.
Okay,
I'm tied up for the next few, I think 12 Tuesdays, actually.
okay. Tuesdays aren't good for you. Joan, what about you?
No.
I don't know that it's really a problem, but I believe that the last Tuesday is the time when the WELF National Board and/or Steering Committee meets. Am I
Right.
off on that?
But I think we could be finished with this by then. So I said.
Oh, I see. The timing would be different. Yeah. That sounds good.
I have to be somewhere at 5:30.
Okay. On Tuesdays in general.
Yeah, we're doing
Okay.
an education outreach things.
Teresa, you're muted if you're trying to say something.
Oh, I was just saying to Samantha, she has a really, really busy schedule. Is there a day that you would prefer close to the end of the month, Samantha?
Or could we do an earlier time on Friday, some Friday that's not close to sundown?
Mhm. I could probably do earlier on the Tuesday. That particular Friday, I couldn't do earlier, but in general, I could do earlier on Fridays.
In general, I could do after 2 on Fridays.
So Friday afternoon. Okay,
Eastern time.
Eastern. Mhm.
Tina, are you saying you could not do early on that Friday, the 29th?
Both on the 22nd and the 29th, I am not available, but I don't have to be there. Other people can do it.
Well, absolutely, you do. You're the convener. On the 26th, can we
On the
do?
26th, I can be there. So maybe we'll try it
Yeah,
Tuesday.
since Tina,
Mhm.
because what Samantha is saying, she has somewhere to be at 5:30. So we could do in the earlier afternoon on Tuesday, the 26th. That sounds like it could possibly
How
work.
about 4:30 Eastern, so 2 hours earlier than tonight? Like Diane, that would give you a little bit more of a break. I think that I can do that 4:30. Joan, how about you? 2 hours earlier.
Well, it's kind of on Samantha.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll be
Samantha's-
definitely on the move, but
She'll
I
be-
can do it.
Okay,
Great.
George?
So we're settling on Tuesday, the 26th, somewhere in the mid-afternoon.
We are. I may put an email out just to double check one more for those people who aren't here. Is that okay? We
Sure.
might adjust it up or down in half an hour or so, or probably up, or leave it as is. How does that sound? Tina will email, that's my action item. And Margot, you can send me any of your notes and action items after the meeting. Sound good? And if anybody wants the recording, I will be able to send it to you if all goes well.